extra special today. And I want to start today. In our first interview, we talked your Army Ranger roots. What we didn't talk and what I didn't know until we had a conversation a few weeks back is you were, I don't know, involved in the direct raid or in the aftermath of the raid of Jessica Lynch. And can you explain who Jessica Lynch was and your role in as a ranger and everything that happened there?
Yeah, so I was a ranger. I was in snipers. So I had just come back in the Army. That was in March of 03. I came back in like January 02. So I had been there for a little bit. I was a sniper attached to B Company 175, 1st Ranger Battalion. So that's where I was back in the 80s for Panama and Desert Storm. Bravo Company, the 75th Rangers. So I had a 10-year break in service, and then I was back in. So I was there as I was a spotter, my sniper, 2-man team. And we were on that raid, and it was, just we hadn't seen much at that point. So we wanted it to be what we thought it was going to be. It wasn't. It was this whole other damn thing that we'll get into. But yeah, so there was SEAL Team 6. There was it was mostly a Ranger thing, 1st and 2nd Bat, And what really sparked me recently was that Pat Tillman documentary, him talking about being on it and just sitting there, waiting for hours and hours and watching A10s do their thing. And he thought they were just having fun. And it's like, he didn't know. I know the look, I know the tone as a Ranger, E3, E4, whatever. When you're just sitting there on the target for 6 or 7 hours, wondering what in the hell is going on. And I'm like, man, he didn't know that we were digging up bodies. So yeah, Jessica Lynch was a private in the Army, and she was in, I don't know, some, unit, and they were ambushed. I don't know all the specifics, but so she was taken hostage for a few weeks. And that was, the big thing at the beginning of the war. So eventually we ended up going to get her. We knew everybody else was killed. We didn't know. Well, that was just like in the background. I don't know why that wasn't talked about more, because we're all, never leave a fallen comrade, never leave anybody behind. It's like, I just don't remember the plan for that. So yes, it was hyped. Yes, it was spun. Okay. Who freaking cares at this point? What I care about is my boys, the guys that were there, BCO 175, digging up bodies, the mortar privates, these kids that as I'm back in the Army now, I'm in my 30s. So I'm, I just want to help these young kids get through this experience and have fun with them, like make friends. They're just good kids. So they're the ones there. I wasn't digging up bodies, but the raid's done. We're looking for sniper targets. There's nothing. They're not dumb. They know when to fight and when not to. The Iraqis, the whoever, Al-Qaeda. So, but the Marines were just like, they had just gotten their asses handed to them and worn out. I'm not saying they got beat. I'm just saying you've been put in a typical Marine situation where it was like, they had just had a rough time. So they were like, oh, be careful in Nasiriyah and all that. So we thought there was potential for a good fight. There wasn't, but so, and I have journal entries, but they don't talk about, it was 3. So I need to say why this matters for me. Like, if something, something's in me burning in my soul, like it needs to come out, things come out. And what it boils down to, I'll just get right to it, is hypocrisy that just can't coexist with the true warrior spirit. And I was watching an interview with Mike Tyson. I love Mike Tyson. And he nailed it. There's these guys lining up, like men, lining up to ask him questions on this interview. And one of them brings up Cus D'Amato. And he's like, man, you got me crying. Why you got to ask that? And then but he stays with it, right? We get older. Mike's in his 50s or 60s. I'm in my 50s. But somebody asks you, like, why? What would you say to cussing? Why? And then, and he just goes, because I'm a savage, right? He says that. And that's the thing that needs to get worked out. And it's like this dude in me, in Mike Tyson, in maybe all of us, I don't know, but it's different in all of us. But if we don't address this, this savage warrior in the right way, we'll have somebody dying at the clip of almost one every hour, like we got here in the US, or we'll have transformation and stories being told in that. So this is why this one in particular, there's lots more, but in particular just gets me is because of what happened on the objective and afterwards. And it's been over 20 years now. And it's still like just not a big deal they still want to talk about, they still want to spin it politically. And it's like, let's respect these 9 soldiers who gave their life.
So I want to back up just real briefly. So you're doing Overwatch when they're digging up the bodies, which I first learned that bodies were dug up. I never knew that until I interviewed a guy named Mike Burke, who was also there in a Ranger element. And I thought that was fascinating. But before that, when the raid goes down, are you in a blocking position? Because it was SEAL Team 6 that got in the hospital, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we were like trying to hitch a ride on their pander. They weren't too nice at that point. And I get it, we're young Rangers. I would probably be the same way. But yeah, they're the ones that went in and brought her out. But we knew where she was. We had an informant. So that was the easy part. Yeah, I was on a building, a rooftop. We just drove right in, crashed the gate, like, boom, spread out. It was just a land on the X. There was a helo element, I think second Ranger, and we just drove in. I was on a friggin' 5-ton. We put sandbags on all around, and we just busted into our corner, fired a couple shots. We saw what we thought was somebody in the window, so it doesn't even matter, irrelevant. But so we were on this rooftop right next to the base of the hospital where the bodies were. So I sent you that thing I wrote, and it's the rescue, if you want to call it that. That was done 45 minutes. That's all done, and then we're digging up bodies. And even before that, like before we went, there's 3 days of so I don't want to knock leadership too bad. I'm not saying I could do it better, but it was always like this in the Rangers, and it was never like this in Delta. Like, we're going to sit out in the hot freaking sun. We literally went, hurry up, 3 days before, flew to this hangar with no roof. And so we're in this hangar in the sun in March in Iraq, just getting crushed like a freaking piece of dry fruit. Then I get, migraine, and people are getting sick. Oh, and by the way, we're wearing our chem suits. We are, but the commander walks by wearing Ranger panties, as we call them, PT shorts, and a t-shirt. And that's when my freaking lid pops, man. Like, I just can't abide in a situation like that. So that's when the chirping starts, and, plan, hut. 3 days later, we're there, and we're doing that. And, then it's time to dig bodies, and it gets real really quick. It's like a gunfight. It's like, okay, I'll forget about all the chirping and chatter, and, you focus. So when it was like, hey, we found the bodies and they're only buried a couple feet down, and we start digging, and then we smell the smell that, to this day, I can't even get close to. But, and then you hear your buddies throwing up, and we're out of water. My e-tools broke. People are bringing e-tools, bringing water. My teammate is going down and helping. And so we're watching it all, and you want to help, but you got to stay up there and do your job, full security. Um, and then, you know, there's radio calls. So you're hearing the radio the whole time. And you're working, you're doing your job, but you're always hearing this traffic. And Fader, I mean, I wrote about him. So like I use people's names when they're awesome. If they're not awesome, I just leave the name out. They know who they are. Fader was just the man. Like he just, you know, staff sergeant standing up to a freaking colonel. Hey, you gonna hurry up? You gotta hurry up there. We got to get out of here. All right, sir. Yeah, we're trying. Guys are throwing up. We're having to rotate out. It's really you know, the bodies are coming apart. Um, it took hours and hours, and e-tools were breaking. Guys were digging with their hands. Um, you know, just we talked later on the way home, and when we got home, you know, eyes were just really, really hard to see stuff. They were buried for 3 weeks in the desert. And we knew with the creed we needed to recover those bodies. So we did, but at one point it was you know, just this, we got to finish up. What's taking so long? And finally Fader was like, hey, sir, would you please shut the fuck up? We are trying so hard. This is the worst thing we've ever done and probably will ever have to do. Please kindly turn your radio off, you know, or come and help. And then it was quiet. And eventually we finished and we're rolling out. It was the sun was coming up at that point. So I just want to, I always want to be where I'm at, right? Feel what I'm feeling. So I get a little shaky talking about this still because and I just want to say that, like, if anybody notices that, yeah, hell yeah, I'm freaking worked up about this. So we're driving home. The sun's coming up, you know, 9-10 in the morning, and we'd been up. We hadn't slept. You know, if you do, it's just a little bit, but so we've got these bodies on the flatbed that I came in on now, you know, we've got in body bags and we're tired. And so the mortar guys driving this flatbed 5-ton go off the road and the body bags roll off. And it's like, oh my God, talk about, you know, Murphy. So we picked him up again, loaded him up again. And we finally get back to wherever we got back to. That's where my memory just goes out. And we got help unloading, but people just took their clothes off, stripped them and burned them. And, you know, I just don't remember a few days after that, kind of like Pepper, I just zoned out once it was done. But obviously the hypocrisy of the, you know, we're wearing charcoal freaking suits in 118 degrees and your boss comes by, you're wearing shorts. That ain't gonna work.
That story is crazy for many reasons.
Yeah.
It's again, I almost feel embarrassed to admit it. I'm 32 years old, and I had no idea that bodies were dug up at all. And I consider myself a bit of a history buff, and I can't imagine just the emotional drain that must take on a guy. How many days would you say it took, maybe, for, I don't know if morale is the right word, but how long did it take for people to kind of, okay, now we're on to the next thing. We can't dwell. We're in an active war. What was that transition like?
Good question. It was longer than normal, like probably longer than when one of your guys dies. You know, that's a day or two, and then it's back to work. I don't remember, but I know it was significant because of, as much as the horror of digging up bodies, the hypocrisy. Because of that, it's like, man, nobody's saying it, but like I can look back now and know that what's going on in our spirit is like just this impossibility of, you know, hypocrisy and integrity. They're not what's going to win. So eventually we got back to work, but I don't remember much.
I do want to ask you one final thing on the Jessica Lynch thing. When that happened, like I said, I was a little kid when that happened, but I remember it on the news. In the initial, you know, the news told these stories of, you know, this gun battle in the hospital, and they were throwing grenades, and there was SEAL Team 6. And obviously now we know none of that happened. When you were over there, were you guys seeing what was being told to the American public about the raid, or did you have no idea of what was being sent back to the country?
We knew, I mean, we had news on, so it was kind of the thing, like you go out and do your work at night, you come home and you're eating breakfast and you watch yourself on the news, like, oh, there's Saddam Hussein, um, stuff like that. So yeah, we knew, but yeah, we didn't watch, we watched Fox, of course, but we knew, but I didn't know how stupidly reported it was until 10 years ago when I looked into it again.
It is crazy. And Jessica Lynch, to her credit, I think you and I talked about this briefly the first time we interviewed. There's some people who might greatly exaggerate or outright lie. Jessica Lynch, to her credit, when she was interviewed, finally said, "I didn't do any of the things that they're claiming I did. I had some teammates who fought to the bitter end. I certainly wasn't one of them." And I think she deserves to be applauded for that, because
Absolutely.
she easily could have just have gone along with the stories that were being told about her, but she had more dignity and integrity than that. And
Right.
and so thank you very much for touching on the Jessica Lynch frayed. Now you're talking about there kind of the emotions, like that was very hard. When you're